as well as in the women's pair. But in the centre of the course, Australia, so far unbeaten in the World Cups and in the races this year, are the crew to beat, and looking to do the double for the men's 4 and the women's 4, both in the Olympic Games for the first time.
There's the 6 boats right at the top of your picture, the crew from the Netherlands. These 4 women, Monica Lans, Alette Reutsma, Jose van Veen and Lise Rustenberg, doubling up in the women's 8. And that's a big ask. Lise Rustenberg, the stroke woman on the left of your picture, 27 years of age. But they're tough, they're experienced. 4 of them have been in the Rio Olympics. There's the cheers for the American crew coming on screen. Erin Relich, Molly Buggleman, Christine O'Brien, Kendall Chase. The stroke woman, 23 years of age. The Australians won the heat, one in Lucerne. Lucy Stephan, Katrina Wary, Sarah Hoare, 24-year-old Molly Goodman in the stroke seat. The Russians, surprise package. Tough to be a Russian rower after the problems they had in the Rio year, being barred from the Olympics. But the Russians back, stroked by Alevtina Sakina. There's the People's Republic of China. Just one woman from Rio, Zhang Min. There she is, one back from the stroke in the 3 seats. But a lot of youth and a lot of poise in that boat. And the Poles and, well, Maria Wiaboska in the stroke seats. Our heart goes out to Anna Wiaboska, who had that dreadful accident. She probably would have been here in the 4. And we hope your recovery, Anna, is progressing well and you are enjoying this fantastic morning of racing at the World Rowing Championships in Florida.
And I should qualify as well that the women's 4 is back in the Olympics for the first time since '92.
Yeah, and as we wait for the start, we're going to see some fantastic pictures and a wonderful production from the German team bringing us the World Rowing Championships and the start of the women's 4s. Let's see what unfolds.
And the United States out to an early start there, getting their bow out in front. The Australians a little slow off the blocks, but it's the crew closest to us, Poland in lane 6, who have this early lead by just half the canvas.
Well, it's fantastic to see this women's event being so well attended, and great start here, as we say, from this Polish crew. The big question I'm thinking is, will we see another Australian Coxless 4 coming home in first place? Having just seen the men's 4 winning, the women's 4 are going to want to follow in their footsteps.
The Dutch have had so much success in the women's 4s. Jose Verdonschot, the Dutch chief coach, brought that under 23 4 across to Henley, where they beat the Americans. And he's got this 4 out of his 8, who are looking as if they're trucking. I love that Russian flag on the scooter. The Russian 4 not in the lead at the moment. That's the Poles, but you can see the Russians there with the white caps on, with the number 4 on their boat, and he is shouting, obviously, to his teammates.
And in the early lead here, it is the Dutch crew over in lane 1. They're currently the fastest boat on the course, leading the field by half a length. Looks like the Americans and the Poles currently fighting for that 2nd position. And interestingly, the favoured Australians sitting back at this stage.
I'm just wondering, Sarah, you know, bearing in mind these women have got to race the 8s tomorrow, will they be worried about that? Are they trying to conserve anything now?
Look, it's interesting. I mean, the Australians aren't doubling up in the 8, so I wouldn't think that they would be. And to be honest, I think you come out here and you're racing the race, that's all you're thinking about. So for anyone doubling up, I don't think that they would be thinking at all about their final tomorrow. Maybe in the earlier rounds of the racing, but certainly not in this A final. You're here to put everything out on the course.
I think that's it. You have to be in the moment. You have to deliver everything you can, one stroke at a time, and not even think about this race and what's going to happen at the end of it, let alone what's going to happen in the race tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout, Greg. I mean, if you're watching and wondering in Australia, we know you're watching in the pubs in Sydney and in Melbourne, Queensland and all over. The Aussies do have a relatively slow first half of the race, but in Lucerne and in the heat here, which they won, they did really have a very, very quick second half. So the Aussies will come back into this.
So in this Australian crew, Molly Goodman in stroke seat from South Australia, Sarah Hoare behind her, Katrina Wary and Lucy Stephan from Melbourne University Boat Club up in the bow there. These are all young women. This is really their first, I think, you know, big chance here on the international stage. They've been unbeaten so far this year, currently sitting back in about 4th or 5th position.
I think I saw in the white shirt Jose Verdonk shot, the Dutch coach there. He's going to be loving his crew out in front. This is brave rowing. The Chinese there you see in red and yellow, but the Dutch out in front, and they are no respecters of having so many races here in the women's 8 and the women's 4, Greg.
Well, it's brave how they've taken it on, isn't it? And what I'm loving is just what tight competitive racing we're having here in the A final. We had equally tight racing in the B final of the women's Coxless 4 as they come through the 1,000 with that crew from the Netherlands still out in front, but I'm expecting this one to get tighter and tighter in the second half.
Yeah, we can see there's only 14 metres separating these crews. They're actually starting to compress. The field is coming back together as they come through the 1,000-metre mark. So this second 1,000 is where these placings are going to happen. I don't think we can take too much from what's happened in the first half, but the Dutch still looking very strong out in lane 1.
The Poles run out their skin, aren't they? I mean, they finished back in 5th place in Lucerne, but here in 6th place, the Polish team on a roll here. There you see in the 3-seat from the Polish quad in Rio, Monika Ciałczuk and Maria Wieboska, the 22-year-old. She's doing this one for her sister, isn't she? Well,
I'm looking for the bows in the middle of the course to see who's going to come through lanes 2, lanes 3, lanes 4. Which of those boats are now going to show and challenge the Dutch? Because there's now only 750 metres to go. And this Dutch crew have been brave early on. We can see them gritting their teeth now, digging in. Can they hold on for the 750, or is someone going to take it on and take it off them?
The thing about the Dutch is they have got a finish. You know that they've got that because of that sort of smooth, fluid rowing that the Dutch do. They're unfussy. You can see the pain on their faces, but you look at the way they're rowing. It's very fluid, it's very smooth, just like that 4, the one at Henley took the under-23 titles. Nobody's making an impact on them at the moment, guys.
Here come the boats in the middle of the course, though. Australia in lane 3, the Russians in lane 4. The Americans starting to find the pace a little bit hot to handle off to their left-hand side, and these crews in the middle are now starting to chip away at that lead by the Dutch. It looks to me like the Dutch are starting to tire, and the Poles are coming with them.
Well, here we go, 500 metres to go. I still think something's going to happen. I just can't quite say what it is yet. That Dutch crew going to try and hang on to that half-length lead. The Australians in the centre of the course here, we see them. It doesn't look too far, but it is far enough, I think, for them to come back and take this half-length lead.
Greg, they had a last quarter 2 seconds quicker than any other boat in this race in the heats where they qualified. That is what they're doing now. They are so aggressive as well.
And they're up on 41 strokes a minute. We saw Lucy Steffen, the bow woman, look across. She gave them a shout. She said, this is the time. You can see she's looking across at the Poles to the left. She's got the Dutch on the right, and the Australians are moving up into the lead. They're drawing level with the Dutch.
The Dutch are going to want the race to end. The Dutch are going to be in pain now. The Australians want the course to keep going. They want those red buoys to arrive so they know they can stop. They haven't got to those red buoys yet. There's still about 30 strokes left, and they can all move on.
And Poland just holding off the Russians to their right. The Russians you can see in that boat with number 4 on. Out in the lead is the yellow boat, the Empaka from Aussies. In second place, the Dutch, but the Poles are challenging. The Russians are coming. And look at that, the Americans. We haven't spoken about them all race. The bows of number 2 from the Americans are challenging for a medal. There are 20 strokes left in this final.
43 strokes a minute. Australia in the lead. Poland moving up. Russia moving up. The Dutch, they're out of it. That brave race early on, but they are on the wrong side of this. The Americans in 4th.
Poland went early, and Poland now look like they're coming back to try and challenge to get the silver and maybe even take on the gold, but I think the course is going to run out. We're coming down towards the line. It's Australia who look like they're going to take the gold, hanging on just ahead of Poland, who had a great sprint finish for the silver, and Russia take the bronze.
Whoa, 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 what a last 500 metres. I tell you what, this is exciting racing. Molly Goodman, absolutely exhausted, the 24-year-old. She drove that crew on, anchored by Sarah Hoare in the 3-seat. Raises her hand. Congratulations, Molly. And there is, well, if you're watching back home, Anna Wieboska, Maria in the stroke seat. You know, those girls were riding for you today after that horrific accident that you suffered, that cycling accident. And isn't it great to see a Russian crew in women's rowing back? They've had a really torrid time, but Elena Orobianskaya, Anastasia Tikhonova, Ekaterina Potapova and Alevtina Sikina took that bronze medal.
And the great thing about the women's 4 coming back, I think, is that, you know, for a lot of countries, the 8 is a really tough ask. You've got to have 8 really strong athletes, really strong competitors to be in that race. The pair is such a skillful boat, it's really hard to find. You know, pair combinations can be really fluky, but the women's 4 coming into the Olympic program once again means that we're seeing some of these countries come back in the women's rowing. Australia, who hasn't really been there for the last 4 years in women's sweep, and now strong again, the world champions again. I think the last time we would have seen a women's sweep crew from Australia being world champions might have been 2005 with the women's 8, and also with the Russians, with the Poles.
And like you say, just a brilliant advertisement for world rowing and women's rowing, just to have such an amazing race that was just so hard to call. And just great for Australia to pick up back-to-back gold medals in both Coxless fours.
Yeah, and we're going to see the first one of them now, the fanfare world confirmation, 6:33, the Aussies, Poland,
The
beating
victory
Russia,
ceremony
US,
for the
pressed out of that
2017
bronze medal
World
position.